What up, everybody? It's the weekly check-in with yours truly. Yes, it feels like it's becoming a weekly thing. I'm hoping I haven't jinxed anything. I'm actually recording this on Sunday. Such a busy week, and I really wanted to wait until the last possible moment. I will say this, happy birthday to Bryan Keith, Reality Wrestling's television champion, who was in action last night at the television taping. Great television taping, great turnout, a lot of positive momentum. We've got a lot of things on the horizon. Happy to see that we got a great crowd that showed up and a great night of action. Now, I won't give any spoilers or results or anything like that, but I am very much looking forward, much like Summer of Champions, to how it comes across once it airs. But speaking of stuff that has aired already, I did, over the course of the week, watch episode 74 and 75, potentially 75 being the last episode that will air on the Cube, because as of next week, 11 a.m., CW39, that being September 20th, Reality Wrestling debuts on that channel. And I think it will start with Summer of Champions, I believe, or Summer of Champions 2, let me clarify. But I did watch episodes 74 and 75. 75, like I mentioned, potentially being the last episode. And I wanted to give a few takeaways from the last two episodes that I watched. First, episode 74. Gino and Aiden, really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed their feud as of late. Getting to see Aiden as a babyface is a new thing for me, and I got it bit, man. I really enjoy his work as a babyface. I enjoy his work overall. I don't give the guy a lot of credit. I should. Really think that he's a solid guy in the ring. Great hand to have, and really has been able to showcase a different layer and a different side of himself with this feud with Gino. Gino impresses me each and every time out. 74, he had the match with Aiden. 75, he had a promo. Really looks like he's found his voice. He's really coming into his own. He impresses me every week. Every time I see him out there, he's impressed me. And I know he puts in the work, like everyone does with Reality Wrestling. So yeah, man. Speaking of promos, not to be outdone, you know, Abel Andrew Jackson as normal. He's solid, man. I think his promos are extremely entertaining in my eyes. But he's not the only one. Like, I like Bryan Keith's promos, his as of late, the birthday boy. And I like Shawn Hendricks, especially episode 75. He showed, you know, just that hint of maniacal anger that I've come to enjoy through his promos. Let me think of anything else that really impressed me over the last two. Well, you know, speaking of Bryan Keith, him and Cedric Payne, their Bryan's TV title defense really impressed me. But I really enjoy his in-ring work, as well as Cedric Payne. I really enjoy Cedric Payne's work. I thought J.J. Blake had a really good showing for himself against Sean Studd. Sean comes with a legacy, comes with, in essence, a destiny. He is putting in the work, and so is J.J. Blake. I think J.J.'s slowly but surely finding himself in that ring, and it's showing when he's out there. So I think good things are going for him on the horizon. Couple other things, you know, especially episode 75, seeing Snow and Steel. I thought that was a really solid match. Seeing Athena, congrats to Athena. A big rumor out there that she signed with WWE. I'm not going to confirm or deny, but there are reports out there, and until she's on NXT. But you know, enough people are talking about it that. And I've known Athena a lot of years. We've talked. Just glad to have her be a part of the last handful of shows that she's been a part of. I think she's a tremendous talent. And her and Miranda, man, I really enjoyed that matchup. I also gotta say I was really impressed with Parviz. He's really taking great steps forward every time he's out there. Just the little things that he does. I mean, the facials, they're one thing, and I enjoy them, you know. I enjoy his intensity, and he's really seeming to find and get comfortable with who he is in relation to the rest of the talent there at Reality Wrestling. Him and Eric Lockhart. Eric, another one. Really enjoying his work. I thought their matchup was great, especially with Andrew Lockhart coming out and doing a fashion show. And talk about a guy, man, I've just been impressed with. Like, he's shown a whole new side of personality, and it's just great to see him doing what he's doing. I also enjoyed the Pump Patrol and the Heavenly Bodies. That was the main event. Again, could be potentially the final episode on theCUBE, because next week, and I may wait to film this show until Sunday of next week, just so I can watch the debut episode. I don't know if I'll do a Periscope. I have like 11 followers now, so if I get a couple of more, great. Maybe I'll do a little live Periscope session. I don't know yet. I don't know. I may want to just watch the show and enjoy it. It's a big step, man. Big step in the right direction for everyone involved, and wow, you know, it's just great. A few other takeaways from my week before I get into the main topics. I got two like big topics, yeah, or you know, interesting stuff. I mean, everything interests me that I talk about, but these two in particular, I'm going to probably take a little more time with. But anyway, let's get through the majority of it. True Detective, like last week I talked about it, season 2 is what I'm referring to, talking about only having seen 4 episodes up until that point. Well, me and my lady love, we decided to watch the remainder of the season. Not really decided, it just kind of just happened. We'll watch episode 5, that turned into, let's watch episode 6, so on and so on. I will say this right off the bat, season 1 I enjoyed a lot more. Something about the characters, the storyline, their interaction, how it was kind of flashing back to the actual case, and then flashing forward to the present, and these two guys, and they're kind of estranged, and you find out why, and all that. Like, it just, the story really worked for me. Season 2, I think, a lot of characters. They doubled, almost tripled the amount of focus that you needed, that you had as far as characters go. You know, because they had the detectives, you know, about 3 detectives, and then Vince Vaughn's character, and then Vince Vaughn's wife, and then the police force, and so I don't know, you know, I think it's hard to do, even though a lot of those characters intersected and interacted, it took a little bit to get its footing. Once it got its footing, I rather enjoyed it for what it was. I think, unfortunately, coming off of season 1, there was this idea of where the show was going to go moving forward, not realizing that, okay, season 2 is a completely different story with completely different characters, and they may not really have anything to do with season 1. Now, I have heard that it did have a little to do with season 1. I didn't see any of that, but I gotta say, I enjoyed a lot of the performances. You know, Colin Farrell, I mentioned Rachel McAdams. I thought she did a phenomenal job. But Vince Vaughn, to me, really kind of from start to finish stole the majority of it. And speaking of Vince Vaughn, it's been a while, so unfortunately, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it, but if you haven't seen True Detective 2, well, I mean, plenty's been written about it, so I'm not saying anything out of turn. I will say his death scene, which happened over a period of throughout the last episode, or not throughout the last episode, but the last few minutes of that last episode, was a thing of beauty. I thought it was a great take on flashing, someone's life flashing before their eyes. It was just a great, different approach. Very I mean, you probably knew what was going to happen, but it was heartbreaking because it seemed like he wasn't going to quit. And then just that final realization, like from complete anger to some happiness to complete realization of where he's at. I thought Colin Farrell went out like a boss. So, great stuff, man. Sad to hear about Lana, who will be out for a few months with a broken wrist. I mean, that's tough, man. In training, not like they can do a storyline part to it. You know, it's not like they're going to show footage of it. It's not like she can get jumped and attacked, and that's how they write her out. You know, now she's gone, and you're kind of curious as to see what they're going to do, or if she's going to make appearances. I mean, just because she has a broken wrist doesn't mean she can't make appearances. But I don't know, man. That's tough. You know, at the same time, it could be a good thing. I mean, things happen for a reason. So let's see what happens when she returns. What the landscape's like of WWE at that point. Heard this little report. Paige and Alicia Fox get kicked out of a Baltimore restaurant on Sunday, not last week, after an altercation with a drunken fan who was also kicked out. Then I read later on that it was potentially being filmed for Total Divas. So there you go. You know, so yeah, not a whole lot more to report. I also heard Kurt Angle to take some time away from pro wrestling after his contract with TNA ends or expires. You know, I mean, he's at that age, like a lot of us, where it's more about quality than quantity. Like, maybe he wants to get out there. I get that. He wants to perform. I think he's one of the greatest that's ever been. I really did enjoy his WWE run, probably up until the ECW stuff. Even though that was a new layer to his character, but I really enjoyed the stuff, the groundwork that they had laid with his character leading up to that. And the TNA stuff's the TNA stuff. I've liked some of it, haven't liked other parts of it. It's kind of been hit and miss. It is what it is. But if he wants to take some time away, that's good. If it allows him to rest up, or if it allows him to recharge his batteries, and who knows, maybe the time away, and even though he says time away, who knows if that's not his way of saying that he doesn't go to WWE. I think him in WWE, even if they would do, you know, let him do a part-time type of thing, you know, maybe they have to be pretty smart about it. But at the same time, who knows? Maybe giving him that schedule, like a TV schedule, that could work. You know, maybe he does a house show here or there. I don't think his career's over by any stretch of imagination. I wish him the best of luck. Obviously, I don't think he sees any worth in re-signing with TNA at this time. But things can change, man. He could say, hey, I'm wanting to take a break, wanting to take some time off, and then his contract comes up and he goes, you know what, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to end it. What else? ROH, man. Really enjoyed it this week. I thought both matches were solid. Really enjoyed Roderick Strong and Jay Lethal. I think those two are some of the best in the business. I think Jay's just on another level as far as performance goes, and I really have enjoyed his stuff. And I'm entertained by the Young Bucks, which kind of ties into one of my topics. So I won't get too in depth with it, but I will say I'm a fan of the Young Bucks. Key and Peele's finale was epic. It was epic. They don't want to give much away, but they pay off the very first skit in this last episode, and they seemingly paid off a joke that started I think 2 seasons ago, and they now paid it off. Which if you haven't seen it, but once you see it, but you'd have to watch like throughout. God, man, they paid it off. It was brilliant. I really enjoyed the show. Kudos to Stephen Colbert. I've watched the first couple of episodes of his new show. it's kind of one of those things that me and my girl want to watch. She's been handling some business out of town or away from here for the last few days, so we haven't had a chance to watch the last couple of episodes. But man, that's great, man. Congratulations to him on getting the Late Show. Yeah. Let's see. Steve Austin had Jake the Snake Roberts on his podcast, and I would advise anyone listening to me to listen to that, because that was phenomenal. It was great to get Jake's views on a lot of things, especially psychology, because anyone who's a fan of this business, loves this business, supports this business, really should pay attention to what Jake says. I mean, it's all really crazy because it kind of, again, ties into the stuff that I've been talking about, or that I planned on talking about. But yeah, his take on psychology and selling, and what a heel's job is, and what a babyface's job is, and how he doesn't see that moves necessarily matter as far as that. It's just how you present yourself, and man, just great. I may listen to it again. That's how, so much knowledge out there. I mean, and he's not the only one. Like Bruce Pritchard and Al Snow and a few others. Like, if you can listen to these podcasts when they have certain guests on, especially if you're in the business, like, grab a notebook, grab a pen, take notes, because you'll learn quite a bit. I also got to say, Impact Wrestling, just a couple of takeaways. I really, the EC3 stuff, especially with Jeff Hardy doing the intro, was funny. Really enjoyed Gail Kim versus Brooke. Really enjoyed that match. And then I liked the stuff with Lady Tapa and Awesome Kong, and the idea of a four-way, and just how that thing was executed. I really liked it, because it gave every woman their shine. It gave every woman their spotlight, and that's the stuff that you want. And not so much with the Beautiful People and the Dollhouse. Like, that really didn't come across quite as well from an execution standpoint as the Brooke versus Gail Kim, and then the Lady Tapa and Awesome Kong interaction at the end of that. I enjoy Eric Young's work overall. There's some people who have an issue with him or don't like his tactics, but I, for one, do. I like the crazy psycho persona that he's coming across with now. Yeah, man, really enjoy his work. And then I will say this about Galloway and Mordensky, otherwise known as McIntyre and Masters. In an alternate dimension, Masters versus McIntyre is main eventing SmackDown, or even Raw, probably for the IC strap. The Masterpiece versus the Chosen One. Maybe even King of the Ring. Could you imagine those two, like, in a King of the Ring final? Like, and in King of the Ring's got some kind of, because in the alternate reality, the King of the Ring's like the big deal. It's like, it is kind of like Money in the Bank. It's a big deal. To me, Money in the Bank's a big deal. Anyway, NFL season starting this week. Started Thursday. Did watch the Patriots and the Steelers. The Patriots just can't get away from any kind of controversy. I like them because they're successful. I'll admit that. I will jump on their bandwagon because they're successful. Now, they've been successful consistently for a lot of years. And for a lot of years, there's always been this, they cheat. I think every team probably bends the rules to some degree to gain some type of competitive advantage. I don't think any team's squeaky clean. I think everyone, I mean, there may be little minor infractions. I thought the whole Deflategate thing was a minor thing. In the grand scheme of things, with all the other negative stuff that goes on in the world, underinflated footballs is the least bit of a problem. I don't know. I just enjoy Tom Brady and his play on the football field. And I think he's a good ambassador for the game. I think the Patriots are a great team. People can say what they want. They don't like them. Hey, they don't really impact me until probably Super Bowl time. You know, last year I probably wanted the Seahawks to win because of the repeat, even though I was kind of torn because I wanted Tom Brady to win because, you know, it's been a little while and he's lost the last couple. But they're consistent, and until someone knocks them completely off or they don't make the playoffs, they're going to continue to be viewed as a successful team. I don't have a problem with it. Let's see, a couple of other things from SmackDown. Great to hear Booker back on commentary. I really enjoy his work. I think he adds an element to it that I really enjoy. I enjoyed Cesaro and Miz. I also enjoyed Paige and Banks. You can see kind of where they're going with it. It's going to be interesting, man. But that was a really good hard-fought battle. It was one of the better Divas matches, as far as singles Divas matches. Gave them time. Both went out there, performed really well. The six-man was solid. They all fall down, like Bray Wyatt said, and you're curious as to who's going to actually want to join for it. It's like, do not be Ambrose and Reigns' friend at this point. Just don't become their friend, because if you're even seen with them, that big Braun Strowman's gonna put you out. You know, they put out Randy for a while. He's written off television. But I think this kind of lays into, they don't really have a lot of plans for Randy. They weren't sure what they were going to do with him, so give him some time off. Cosmic Wasteland, I'm fine with it. I thought Charlotte's interaction with Nikki was really awesome, a really good step in the right direction for her. And I really enjoyed Ryback and Rollins. I did. Hey, even from Monday I enjoyed their matchup. Now, I'm almost at like Friday. Let's see. For my week. And there's a little bit of controversy with another NXT or developmental talent, female talent, and some comments she made years ago. Jasmine, who was not fired. And the only thing I could say is, while what she posted, whether she did it or she didn't, or someone hacked her account or used her account without her knowledge, which I guess can happen, even though it wasn't, you know, it was years ago, so it wasn't like she was some famous person that somebody would want to hack her. Maybe her parents. I don't know. I think the big difference between her and why they didn't fire her as opposed to what they did with Zara is that Zara did have a past couple of things that caused headaches for WWE, like the sexting thing and those pictures that got posted, and some of the scandal that came out of that. I think you add the comments on top of that, and they're like, well, we gave you another chance, but this is too far. Whereas Jasmine hadn't really had a history of any kind of issue. So yeah, I don't see the problem, because it was hopefully just a isolated incident and not something that's going to affect her moving forward. So yeah. Let's see. What else? Oh yeah, Mark Maron, the WTF podcast. I really enjoyed, and really, like, if you're a fan of Colt Cabana, you should thank Mark Maron, because that's the reason Colt does his show. I think he listened to Mark Maron's podcast and was like, oh, well, if I'm a fan of his. I should do something similar to what he does. He had Fred Armisen on his show, and that was a really revealing interview. I'm a big fan of Fred and his work. And I know, you know, he was like married to Peggy from Mad Men. I think Elizabeth. God, her last name escapes me. My bad. I didn't have that written down, unfortunately. But anyway, he was married to her at one point. So I don't know. It was just a really nice, revealing interview. I really enjoyed it, and I spent some of my Friday night watching some New Japan. Now, here's the thing. On my DVR, I have like, at the time, I had 16 episodes of New Japan, just from various times. I've gotten the last handful of consecutive dates of New Japan. So I watched 3 or 4. I'm not going to go too much into detail with those because I'm not caught up. Let me get caught up. I'm watching like stuff from, even though they film, they release stuff after the fact. You know, for instance, like one of the episodes I saw was on my DVR from May 19th of this year, but it was from like October 14th, 2013. So they do stuff after it's happened. It's not like a live or taped to live, you know, it's not one of those instances. It's just, look, this is what we're doing, this is our journey, so on and so forth. I like the commentary. I really like, what I like from them, aside from the action, I do enjoy like the press conferences. You know, it kind of seems to happen like right after the match, so they're still kind of in the heat of the moment. I really enjoy those. I like what I hear from them, and I do enjoy when they sit down with the potential winner. And not always. It's not always. It used to be, to me, felt like it was a giveaway that who they had, if they were part of the intro, they were going to be part of the outro, and they were going to, because they had won. Not always the case, but I like their take on the match after it's happened. You know, months later. You know, when this thing's going to air. So really enjoy that. I've watched about 3 episodes, so I have about 13 left, and I'll probably have 14 by this time next week. And also, just a quick update. My Arkham Knight update. It's going to be like a weekly thing until I beat it, probably. I'm at 96%. 96%. Now, mind you, I could just say abandon it and just be like, I'm done with it, and leave the Riddler around town to do whatever and be like, the next Batman can take care of him. But now I am officially determined to beat it. I am officially determined. I have collected 153 of 243 riddles. I have solved 153. So I am at 83.4%. Man, almost done. Almost done. I'm determined to beat it. So yeah. Like I said, I went to a great television taping last night for Reality Wrestling. So I know October's going to be a pretty busy week, pretty busy month, and it's going to lead to even a busier time for Reality Wrestling. Like it's about to take off with the new building. It was great having Bruce kind of lead things last night. You know, he shared a really great story, especially about the venue that we're moving to, and the idea of being on the CW. You know, for those that aren't even, I mean, that's a big step, a huge step, and the fact that that people know about it, that people are talking about it, I think's great. So October's going to be busy though. Clear Lake on October 10th. We go back to Clear Lake. Go to those shows while you can. I'll say that because with the new building, we'll see what happens. The 17th, Spring, Texas. We make our debut there. So if you're in the Spring area, come out to that show. You will not be disappointed. And then we go back to Nacogdoches October 30th. for another great time there. I expect a bigger crowd next time, and I expect some great action. So, now that I've covered pretty much everything, and I will take the last few minutes or last portion of this to talk about a couple of topics. The PWI 500 came out a couple weeks ago. It's always kind of the source of much debate, to put it mildly. I don't know. It's always kind of been this thing. I know when I was really into it, and my friends, and we would see the PWI 500, you would get either one of two opinions on it. It would be, oh, it's fake, and it's a complete work, and it's totally not on the up and up if you weren't on it. If you were not on the list. Now, I've made the list a few times, although, like, one year I was at 296, I think was the highest I had ever gotten. And then the next year I wasn't even on it. But it wasn't like my opinion changed. I just stopped really looking into the magazine once I was no longer really featured on it or put on it. I think it does carry some weight because people do pay attention to it. And I think some promotions will utilize that. I've seen some promotions like say, oh, congratulations to our talent roster, the talent that made the list. And then you look at some of the names and it's like, yeah, they appear on your show. I don't know if they're necessarily part of your roster. Like, and I don't know if you're the reason that they got that spot. Like, I don't think ACH working for VIP, no offense to them, because I like their company, I like what they're doing here, good stuff. But I don't think that's what got him number 58. I think the stuff at ROH and the stuff that he does all over the world, that's what got it. I think ROH had a lot to do. So you have people who would think it's a work, and you have people who think it's legitimate. It really depends on your take. Me, I get it. It is really based on company a lot of times. The company you keep and what the companies are doing. Now, I noticed this year, congratulations to everyone who was on the list, and a lot of the guys that I'm familiar with that made the list, congratulations to them. Take it for what it's worth. It's a feather in your cap. That's one thing. It's a part of your history. That's another. And it's something that you can look back on with some pride, man, because that being associated with that list is a big deal. No matter what anyone says, you are considered one of the top 500 wrestlers in the entire world. Work or not, because all lists are subjective. All lists to some degree are a work. You say a top 10, it's subjective. It's my opinion or a group of people's opinion. It's not everyone's opinion. It's not the world's opinion. Some people might believe Seth Rollins is the #1 wrestler in the world. There are probably a lot that don't believe that. There's no Brock Lesnar on this year's list, and they have a reason why he's not on the list. But Jeff Jarrett's on the list. I don't know if he wrestled 20 matches or 7 months out of the year. And Daniel Bryan was back for a bit, but did he wrestle a lot, or was it kind of he came in, wrestled, and then by after Mania or a little bit after Mania he's out? So I don't know. And again, the PWI can do whatever they want. Now, I know my experience with them, to get on the list, you had to be, a company had to submit results over a period of time. Why I made the list over the years that I made it had a lot to do with Rob Moore and PCW. Because they would put out results and submit them to PWI, and we had PWI representatives come to our show a couple of times. So I know that's why that and being part of affiliated with NWA at one point are probably the reasons why I was even on that list to begin with. Because I know once I left PCW, not a lot of companies that I worked for really submit stuff. I will say this, I had mentioned it at one point that I thought Reality Wrestling should submit results to PWI just to kind of get that It's another method of getting the name out there, for one, and it's a shame that there are plenty of wrestlers on our roster that I believe should be in the PWI 500. I mean, you got Q, Ryan Davidson, Aiden Cristiano, Gino, Brian Keith, Gustavo, the Heavenly Bodies, Pump Patrol, some of the Legion members, you know, most of the Legion members. I mean, there's just a whole slew of talent out there. And I'm not just reality wrestling, like there's others. Like if you're a true PW, you know, true list of the top 500, it should be every company out there should be should be part of this list making process. So, but it is what it is. I mean, you have to submit results. It has to be from a company that PWI thinks has some merit, and then once they can, you know, they tabulate everything, then there you go. But again, congratulations to everyone who made the list. I think, you know, yeah, man, you know, plenty of Texas talent out there, plenty of people that are out of Texas. I didn't have as big of a problem with the list as some did. And finally, finishers. Now, a part of this is what stemmed it was I saw a meme about let's stop the super kick, because people are using the super kick as you know, as less than a finisher. It's like a setup move for some other move that's not as impressive, and let's make the super kick what it should be, the you know, a true move to be revered. So I saw this meme, and I thought it was pretty hilarious. And I would listen to Stone Cold's podcast. He would talk about the DDT and kind of the misuse of that move. Because again, one of his big idols growing up, you know, one of his big idols was Jake the Snake. And his use of the DDT was awesome. You knew nobody kicked out of the DDT. And now seemingly, no matter how amazing the DDT is, not quite. Now, you know, when I broke in and after I got into business, I think of some of the iconic stuff. Of course, the Stone Cold Stunner, Triple H's pedigree, the Crippler crossface from Chris Benoit, Ric Flair's Figure 4, Punk's Go to Sleep, even though I saw it when Kenta, now Hideo Itami, created the move. Page's Diamond Cutter, Orton's RKO, which again is kind of a take on the Diamond Cutter. Undertaker's Tombstone, Hogan's Big Boot Leg Drop combo. You couldn't do one without the other, much like Goldberg Spear Jackhammer. You got it, had to do both in succession. Or Bret Hart's Sharpshooter, Sting Scorpion Deathlock. Liked them both. Didn't know who came up with it first, and apparently Sting was the guy who came up with it first. And then but again, it was like a move out of Japan. Jericho's Walls of Jericho. Not so much the Walls of Jericho, the Lion Tamer. Really enjoyed that one. Of course, Jake's DDT, Savage's Top Rope Elbow, Cena's Attitude Adjustment, which used to be called the FU, because it was a play on Brock's F5. Brock's F5 is another one. Jay Lethal's Lethal Combination, or Lethal Injection, moreover, the Lethal Injection. Gigolo James Johnson's or Athena's O-Face. The first time I saw that, it's a variation of a stunner off the top rope. The corkscrew element, I thought, God, that's a finisher. It's so much fun. Not so much fun to take, but just to be part of that. And of course, Shawn Michaels' Sweet Chin Music. Now, growing up, those, or like Jeff Hardy's Swanton, or you know, there are a few others. Rhino's Gore. I know when I was breaking in and the time came to come up with a finisher, the biggest rule was, could you do it on anybody? And I was so influenced by Shawn Michaels that for me, the Sweet Chin Music, or what I would later call the sexy kick, was the move of choice. Because I could hit that on anybody in any angle at any given time. I didn't need a lot of setup or prep for it. I just could go out there and do it against anybody. So there was that. Now I had thought about like using a submission move. But when I broke in, submissions, especially on the independents, weren't a revered thing. Now you got to think, like, I broke in 2000, there were a few guys who did submissions, but it wasn't like the influx of MMA and the tapping out. I mean, that really started to come about with, with Ken Shamrock. I mean, Shamrock brought that element in, but it wasn't, you'd be on the indies and nobody wanted to tap out. There was kind of one of this, like, nobody wanted to put that over. Even though I think the submission, if done correctly, and if teased correctly, can be a phenomenal storytelling device, much like the super kick or sexy kick. I would use my finisher as a way, as a way of telling a story. Like, man, I can hit that thing out of nowhere, you better watch out. Same thing with submission, but you'd always run into that issue. Now, for me, throughout the years, I've tried different finishers for a variety of reasons, just to see. I tried the double underhook tombstone, which I just wanted to do something that was different. I felt like that was going to be a great move. But the problem was that executing it, I was always concerned about the other person's safety, for one, more than normal, because of just the position. I mean, they're completely at my mercy with that, and you do want to protect. I also tried using the Sexified, but which was kind of like a corkscrew suplex. It was just like a twisting suplex neckbreaker combo. I'd seen, I want to say, like Sonny Siaki use it back at TNA when he was part of the Flying Elvises. Like, I just liked that motion. Like, he had that one, he had one, like, it was kind of like Jared Steele calls it the steel plate, but it was kind of like a flatliner, but it was like a quick DDT motion. And I tried those two moves at different varying times, but I never felt like they got as much of a reaction as the super kick or the sexy kick, because they just didn't. Same thing with the DeMark out. Like, I create this kind of big presentation to get into the DeMark out. I thought, great name. I could hit it almost out of nowhere, and in essence I got good enough to hit it out of, like, just whatever, but again, just didn't have as much of the impact as the sexy kick. Like, I didn't have to add anything other than just making contact with the guy, with the person's face, because the crowd would make the sound effect for me for all intents and purposes. I will say this about finishers. They aren't always protected. And what I mean by that is, like, if you go to any normal indie, or hell, if you're looking at like ECW television back in the day, you see guys, you may have had Rob Van Dam's 5-star frog splash, another one that I really considered an iconic finisher, which I really enjoyed. Same thing as Eddie Guerrero's frog splash, but just a different take, motion and such. But you'd see other guys do a frog splash, or like the super kick. Even though Stevie Richards did the Stevie kick, there are other guys who did the super kick. But on the indies, it's just as bad, if not worse. Like, they don't protect it. Now, there are companies that do. PCW, I've told this story about my first dark match there, and even though I did the super kick, someone else did the super kick on the show, so you couldn't use that finisher. And someone else did like a variation of a spine buster, you couldn't do that finisher. That's what I mean by protected. Like, people pay to see those moves performed by specific people, and therefore you don't do that move. But that's not always the case. Now, reality wrestling, there is a bit of protection to an extent, because we're such a close-knit group of people that people pay, our talent does pay attention to who does what finisher, and we try to stay away from each other's finisher. Me not so much because I'm in the bag, but I'm saying talent-wise. Now, finishers used to be the thing. You didn't kick out. You know, you think of like the Stone Cold Stunner. Not many kicked out of it initially. Think of the F5. Initially, not a lot of people kicked out of it. The Tombstone. The leg drop from Hogan. Like when you know, even to escape that, even to dodge that move was a big deal. Like when Warrior did it, or the first time that, you know, I remember Michaels and Undertaker 25. You know, Undertaker hits that Tombstone, and to see Michaels kick out and Taker's reaction, the WrestleMania effect on finishers has spread throughout, because you take like the attitude adjustment now from John Cena. He has to hit 2 or 3. Like during his U.S. Open run, U.S. title open run, he'd have to hit a couple to get the job done. Like the resiliency of the other of his opponents increased, or the effectiveness of the move decreased. But I think it has a lot to do with WrestleMania. WrestleMania was the time where finishers did get kicked out of. Now it's crazy to see, again, you know, I look at Brock and he's hitting like 4 F5s in one night. But it's who he's facing. He's facing like Roman Reigns, who's on the come up. He's facing Undertaker, who's a legend and supernatural. So you kind of understand it, but at the same time, I miss the days of hit the move once, guy doesn't kick out. And I mean, to some respects, you got like the pop-up powerbomb from Kevin Owens. That's a pretty devastating move. Only a handful have kicked out of that one. But yeah, it's changed to some degree. A lot of it is WrestleMania. You know, now that spills over because every show's got to be an event, and you've got to do something that kind of shocks the crowd. And what better way to shock the crowd than to have someone kicking out of somebody else's finisher? I don't know. You know, it is what it is. I remember having a conversation with Sabu when we were going to work our match, and me asking like specifically if he had something in mind for a finisher. And he was like, I don't really have a set finisher. I just, whatever comes about. And his take was, that way anything could be a finisher. That way you're not relying on the one thing, and people don't have to look for the one thing. And I got that. That was a really smart way of doing it. At the same time, you look at WWE, it is all about setting up the move. You know, the people's elbow. Another iconic move. You wouldn't think of it as a finisher, although it has beaten plenty of people. And not necessarily with the Rock Bottom being the setup. Another great finisher. Sometimes just the Spine Buster was the setup. So yeah, I don't know. I like I love Randy Orton, and when he gets into his thing, and he's hyping himself up to get the RKO about to start it. You know, he's doing all this stuff to get it, you know, all this staging and theatrics. Or, you know, Macho Man when he get to the top rope and he would just, you know, kind of slowly rise. Or even Daniel Bryan and the knee, that they could never come up with like a name for that knee. The running knee. You know, you should have had like the yes knee or the yes kick or whatever, something. Because that was another thing growing up, like the name, calling it. I try to have a variation of sexy on everything because you wanted to kind of brand yourself to some degree. Now, speaking of the sexy kick, here are my, kind of like in closing. I don't know, like, I think the first couple of times I would see it, like if I'd be on a show and guys knew I was on the show and knew that, hey, the sexy kick's going to be part of the deal, other guys using a super kick. And using it just to use it, like it's just opening moments. They're not really sure what to do. Oh, let's throw a super kick, or they throw it, and the guy would just kind of stand there. You know, especially like if you got the fighting spirit. Sometimes they do that where it's just the kick, and the guy just kind of like wobbles, but doesn't really like go down, and then they go into something else. I don't know, sometimes I'd get offended, especially if I knew that I was going to use the kick, But then my rationalization is, well, you do a super kick, I do a sexy kick. Mine's way more devastating, so I only needed to do once to get the job done. Now, that wasn't always the case, even in some of my matches, depending on who the guys were. If they had a certain level, they had achieved a certain level, then it would take more than one. But I'd always try to be smart about it. Or if I'd hit it early, I remember like Lance Hoyt, our I Quit match, like I'm trying to prove a point, so I hit him back to back with them. And like I hit one and he kind of, you know, he falls into the ropes, comes right back, and I whack him again. And then he sells it and I'm like, buddy, this is just the beginning. If you don't quit, I'm going to keep kicking your head, your teeth down your throat. I'm just going to keep doing it. Or with Action Jackson, you know, he was a legend. He's a legend. We have our big matchup, and it's a Kiss My Foot match. And I hit him with a couple. In part because he's a legend. He's got a certain status. I'm not going to do that with just anybody. And we'll make sure he stays down. Because you hit him, I hit him with one, and he's kind of still kind of moving around. Hit him with another. You ain't getting up out of that. And he did not. I won that match. He still should be kissing. Anyway. Speaking of that, that also, especially with Action Jackson, that also gave me the opportunity to hit someone else's finisher, which is always kind of fun. Always kind of fun. He used to do kind of a rock bottom variation called the Big Booyah. Getting to hit that on him, man, that was more of a highlight than this 2 sexy kicks. But back to the super kick, sexy kick thing. Yeah, it used to bother me, but then again, I would say, well, you use the super kick, I use the sexy kick. Sexy kick's way more devastating. If you hit a sexy kick and you don't win, then you're just not doing it right. So yeah. Now I will say this. Speaking of the Young Bucks, the super kick party. There has been plenty of discussion and debate about the super kick party, and how it's diminishing the super kick and this, that, and the other. Now, what I saw, especially this last episode of ROH, which had the Young Bucks on, was not that. I didn't see them wasting the move. It's an offensive move that gets a reaction. You got Carino saying, super kick! And welcome to the super kick party, and there's some gravitas to it. Now, they're not beating guys with them. They're just using it. I don't know. That speaks to a bigger issue. I think it's always about maximizing your minutes and doing as much as possible with as little as possible. I think you lose some of the gravity of the moves if you're just going from move to move. Now that comes with time, where you know, this is a younger generation's type of era. It's about having the young guys and gals be in the forefront, which is understandable. That's just, it's not just wrestling. That is how the movie industry is, to a lot of respects, about having younger talent be in certain roles because it appeals to a younger audience. So I can understand that. At the same time, experience, I think, wins out a lot of times. And I think as long as you're giving the moves their proper respect, because any move could potentially hurt someone long term. So I think as long as within the art of what we do, you do give each move its gravity, you do give each move its respect, from not just the person giving it, but the person taking it. And it's not just, oh, we're just doing it to do it. Because nothing's worse than that. You know, that stuff will, it's even like little things, like little melee stuff. But I think sometimes, and maybe this is something to get into later on, is it just a different era now? Are we in the video game era, where it is about the number of moves that you can do in a match as opposed to the storytelling the storytelling aspect of things? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Are you more inclined to pay attention to someone who does a whole lot of moves and is super athletic, but there's no gravity to it? Or are you more about the storytelling aspect of it? I will lean towards the storytelling aspect. That's me, though. That's what I grew up with. Like, the main event slot was a storytelling. They didn't have to do a lot of stuff because the characters won out. I always think characters win out over any move that you can do. It's called the Stone Cold Stunner because it's Stone Cold. You know, the pedigree because of Triple H. Doesn't matter if Seth Rollins does it, it's the pedigree. Or you take the Sharpshooter, Bret the Hitman Hart, or the Scorpion Deathlock from Sting. As opposed to moves, just for moves' sake. The video game aspect, because it's not a video game. People can say what they want, it's not a video game, it's very real life and it's very true, and there are repercussions and injuries can happen. You look at Lana, she's out for 4 months with a broken wrist. From training of all things. I think for me, like, the storytelling, character-driven, personality-driven stuff works because you're adding the gravitas to what you're doing. And I think if you add that gravitas, then what happens is you get a bigger respect from the people watching. And stuff's not just consumed and then forgotten about. I think that sometimes is the problem with just the pacing of certain matches. You can't get wrapped up in everything because they're just getting to the next spot. And for me, it's all more about storytelling than the actual moves. But that's just my take. So next week will probably be another like 2 main topic. I will be going to NXT Live the 17th with my lady love. We're in the 3rd row. I think hard camera side. I believe that's what she said. So I'm very much looking forward to that live. I'm sure I've got some friends that will be there. But if you're in that area, if you're there September 17th, be sure to say hello, because I will be there watching. I cannot wait to see that show. I'm a big fan of NXT. Really like what they do. A lot of the little stuff that they do in their performances. Man, it's just a great product. And then Sunday, September 20th, as I've mentioned, right before football, 11 a.m. in the CW 39. Reality Wrestling makes its debut. Now, I think they'll still be on YouTube, but I'm not sure, so go to realitywrestling.com for more details. Again, thanks everyone for listening, for taking the time to watch this or listen to it, or whatever, however you consume this. I really appreciate it. I would tell you, if you can't watch it as it's happening and you could download it somehow, great. Maybe I'll try to come up with ways so that you can get another way of getting this. I'll look into that so I can get more people listening to my stuff, because I really enjoy putting this stuff out. I hope all of you have enjoyed this episode. Come back next Sunday for the next one. Until the next time, stay cool, stay sexy, stay classy. As long as you're enjoying life and having a good time and trying to just enjoy every moment. You're already all those. But until the next time,